thanks for joining. My name is Nick. I'm a BIM specialist here with Microsol Resources, and like you said, I'm based out of our Philadelphia office. My background is in architecture. With Microsol Resources, I now work with our clients in the AEC industry by supporting and consulting on Autodesk products, as well as some of the other partner products that Bill had mentioned. Please feel free to ask questions in the chat as we go along. We'll try to address as many as we can at the end. Today, we're going to discuss the Autodesk Construction Cloud, or ACC for short, as I'll likely refer to throughout this presentation. And today, we'll be focusing on the design phase for the most part. Please join us next week for a continuation of today's webinar, which will be focusing on pre-construction and construction management, so other products in the ACC platform. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to turn off my camera, and I'll turn it back on at the end of the presentation when we do some Q&A here. So let me just turn that off. Okay. So let's get started here. So I guess I should start with the what's new question itself, with the fact that the Autodesk Construction Cloud itself is actually new. After acquiring PlanGrid within the last couple of years, Autodesk wanted to develop an offering that took the best technology from both BIM 360 and PlanGrid and combined them into one platform to be used by the AEC industry. So the ACC was rolled out in early February of this year, so obviously it's pretty new to everyone. A lot of the new functionality comes from the result of BIM 360 and PlanGrid being combined into Autodesk Build, one of the products in the ACC, which I'll cover next week in our webinar focused on construction. But this week we're going to review what the ACC offers for design professionals, which includes some new features, but more so the rebranding and repackaging of products that you may be familiar with from BIM 360 itself. So for those unfamiliar with what the Autodesk Construction Cloud is, or for that matter, even what BIM 360 is, let me provide a little bit of background here. So prior to the ACC, or the Autodesk Construction Cloud, the BIM 360 platform, which has been around since about 2015 or so, has been the cloud-based solution that allows project teams to work in a collaborative environment from anywhere and at any time. And before that, we even had BIM, quote-unquote, BIM 360 team, which doesn't quite have the functionality that BIM 360 does, but it is a cloud-based file sharing platform nonetheless. So, I probably don't have to say this to anybody on the webinar here, but as you might imagine, in the past year or so during the pandemic, the usage of the BIM 360 platform has become more and more prevalent, simply because with so many people working remotely, it gave us all access to the information that we typically have on our physical office servers, which we'd have to access via a VPN or some other type of a virtual desktop. It can all now be accessed in the cloud. So using this technology, we're really only limited by our internet connections as we run the software locally on our workstations, for example, at home, and then access everything housed in the ACC or in BIM 360, all through an internet browser. So ultimately, this is probably the most valuable asset that the ACC, or again, BIM 360 provides, that connectivity, that everyone on a project team has real-time access to all the information, again, anytime and from anywhere. Now, the ACC is essentially providing the same tools as BIM 360, but with a new user interface and with better access to some of the tools that were split into separate products in BIM 360. The ACC is a collection of modules or products, the same as BIM 360, which act as a set of tools for specific phases of the project. As you can see in this image, from design to planning to construction, all the way through to handoff and operations. And again, this webinar will be focusing on the design phase shown in this image at the beginning of the life cycle. Now, there's a lot of ways to use these platforms depending on your role and your industry. Just know that we will only be scratching the surface here today, and my goal is to give you a general overview and to discuss some of the changes from BIM 360 to the ACC. Oops. All right, next slide. So before I jump into a brief overview of the products in the ACC, I wanted to discuss licensing a little bit, as Bill had hinted at in his introduction. Previously, in BIM 360, it used to be a mixed bag of bring your own and hub assigned, meaning that some products, specifically BIM 360 Design, were assigned as a product in your contract manager's Autodesk account, just like your AEC collection for Revit or AutoCAD, for example. The rest of the products were actually assigned to your assigned by your BIM 360 Hub administrator. This meant that if you were invited, if you had invited, say, an outside consultant to your project and they needed to run clash detection, you would have to provide and assign the BIM 360 coordinate license for them to use on your own BIM 360 site. As you might imagine, this has caused a little bit of confusion over the years, especially with those teams who are first starting to use the products. So now, with the ACC, all licenses of the products that we'll be discussing here are actually bring your own, meaning that all products are assigned by your Autodesk account contract manager. And then when you're invited to any project at any site, you can actually bring your own license and use that license. So subsequently, when you invite one of your consultants to a project, they're actually bringing their own license to the ACC instead of you potentially having to assign a seat of your own to them through your hub, again, like we currently do in BIM 360. So the ACC products are individually purchased products, much like your AEC collection or standalone subscriptions to, say, Revit or AutoCAD. And again, they can be assigned to your AEC collection or standalone products in your Autodesk account. The one exception to all of this being the Autodesk Docs product, which is your file repository in the cloud and the backbone of all the Autodesk Construction Cloud. And that's because it supports all of the products that we'll be discussing. So whereas BIM 360 Docs was a standalone product with BIM 360, Autodesk Docs now actually comes bundled with your AEC collection. Those of you out there who have an AEC collection may or may not have noticed that you now have access to Autodesk Docs through your Autodesk account, but it should be there as of early February of this year when the ACC was released. So Autodesk Docs basically Autodesk is basically providing Autodesk Docs product free with your AEC collections moving forward. And of course, if you don't have an AEC collection, and like BIM 360 before it, access to Autodesk Docs itself will come bundled with the purchase of any of the other products that we'll be discussing. Because it houses all of the files used with those products, so it has to come part and parcel with those products themselves. Okay, so now what I'd like to do is give you a brief overview of the main products available in the Autodesk Construction Cloud. Then we'll hop out of these prepared slides that I have and focus on a live demo in the browser of the products that focus on the design phase of the project. Okay, so as I've mentioned, Autodesk Docs is the core component or the foundation of the Autodesk Construction Cloud. Autodesk Docs is the document management product. It's comparable to BIM 360 Docs for the BIM 360 platform, again, as it supports the entire AEC platform. So think of it as a file server in the cloud, but with additional functionality. As I mentioned a couple times now, it houses all of the project information used by each of the other products that we'll be looking at today. Here you can see some of the core capabilities that it provides, including document and version control, publishing features from software that you're using as part of the AEC collection, both 2D and 3D viewing and comparison tools, the use of the issues and the markup tools to convey changes that may need to take place in a project, the ability to set different permission levels for folders and files, dashboards and reports, and of course administrative functions to add users and manage their roles. Now, I mentioned this already, but I wanted to reiterate as kind of we walk through these products together here. So we're breaking this discussion of the ACC up into two separate webinars. One this week that you're here with us now, focused on design, and another next week that's focused on construction. So our main focus today is going to be on Autodesk Docs plus these two products that will fall under this design heading that I have here. The first product here is Autodesk BIM Collaborate. This product is comparable to BIM 360 Coordinate, and that is the product that provides collaboration tools for reviewing clash detection. Think of it as almost a Navisworks in the cloud to some extent. This product can be used by users who are working on a model or a file working on that type of, a model or a file or LinkedIn files for coordination, but they may not need to be in the Revit model syncing with Central and work sharing with a team. The next product is Autodesk BIM Collaborate Pro, or ABC Pro as some are calling it for short. This product is comparable to BIM 360 Design plus BIM 360 Coordinate. So with the new ACC platform, you are actually getting what were once two products in BIM 360, both bundled into one product in the ACC. This gives the design team access to both work sharing and file sharing controls, as well as the ability to run clash detection to coordinate those models and files that other teams may be sharing with you. I think more often than not, this is going to be the more popular of the two Collaborate options for most designers. And as a precursor to next week, and just so that you can get the full picture of what the ACC offers today, I want to give a brief overview of the two products that are focused on pre-construction and construction within the ACC as well. So the first is Autodesk Takeoff. This is a new product that's being offered now with the rollout of the ACC. And this product mainly focuses on estimators, as it has some pretty robust quantification tools that can take your models and files, break them down into manageable parts or groups in order to do detailed quantity takeoffs that can then be exported into other cost estimating software. The second product that falls under this category is Autodesk Build. And this product is comparable to BIM 360 Build plus BIM 360 Cost Management plus PlanGrid. So like Autodesk BIM Collaborate Pro or ABC Pro, users are actually getting some products that were previously separated in BIM 360, which now come bundled as one product within the ACC. And then, as we'll cover in much greater detail next week, Autodesk Build provides tools for RFI submittal management, checklist creation and templates for use in the field with things like daily logs or reports, as well as safety inspections, tools for budgeting and cost control through items like contracts and change orders. And one of the big additions is the use of the PlanGrid mobile app that many in the construction industry are familiar with as a mobile app that can be used on site essentially. And so kind of, have that mobile connectivity between tasks that are performed, in the field versus in the office itself. Okay, so now let's take a look at the ACC in the browser itself. So let me get out of this and bring up my browser window. Okay, so this is the user interface for the Autodesk Construction Cloud. Those of you familiar with BIM 360 will see some similarities between the two. And any of you who are familiar with PlanGrid will actually see some similarities with that product as well, especially with the interface. So again, this user interface is taking those tools and features from BIM 360, but now packaged in the user interface that PlanGrid users are familiar with. So while it does look a little different to those of us who have been BIM 360 users, I think you'll find as we walk through this that it's actually organized a little better than BIM 360 as we kind of take a look at how everything is organized. All right, so let's start to walk through the ACC a little bit here. Up at the top, you can see, I have a similar project drop-down selector right here. Any projects that we have on our ACC site, so I can scroll through here, or any projects that you've been invited to on other projects are actually visible in this drop-down. One thing you'll notice, though, is that I actually have two types of icons on the right of the projects. Let me scroll through here. The blue globe that you see here on a couple of these projects, that indicates a project on the Autodesk Construction Cloud, or the ACC. While any of these other projects you see here with a blue B, that actually indicates projects on the BIM 360 platform. So what this means is from the ACC, you can actually access projects in both platforms. So if I clicked on one of these projects with the B attached to it, so let me just go to one that I know works. So here you can see the B icon. So I'm just going to click on this. You can see it automatically takes me into the BIM 360 platform that any of you who have been using BIM 360 are familiar with. So you can see here that simply by clicking on the drop down here, I can access both projects in the ACC, or I can click on one of these with the B, and it'll take me into BIM 360, for example. Just one note that I want to make here is while I can access both projects in both the ACC and BIM 360 from the Autodesk Construction Cloud, I can still only access BIM 360 projects from BIM 360 as the older platform. So let me just show you the difference here. So if I click back into that advanced sample project that we have on BIM 360 here, and then click on my project selector, you'll see that blue B. I don't see that blue globe. So I can only, if I'm in BIM 360, I can only access projects that have been generated, have been initiated in the BIM 360 platform, whereas access to the ACC gives me access to all of my projects, both on the ACC, the new platform, and BIM 360, the older platform. So your products now, if you have BIM 360 Design, for example, as I mentioned, that is now BIM 360 Collaborate Pro. You basically have, you may not have any projects on the Autodesk Construction Cloud, but you have access to the Autodesk Construction Cloud at this point. So what we talk about with, with a lot of our clients is, if you're going to use both platforms, maintain your projects that you have in the BIM 360 platform through the duration of the project now. And then if you want to start a new project, say in ACC, you can do that, and you have access to both here through the Autodesk Construction Cloud. So also at the top left, here's where I can select the different products that I have access to through a drop-down. Depending on what products you have access to, this may look a little different for some of you when looking at this. I have access for all the products, so you can see all the products or modules that we'll be talking about here today as well as next week, all as part of part of the options that I have available to me through this drop-down. All right, so let's take a look at this Autodesk Docs product here we have here. So like BIM 360 Docs, this is where most of my files are actually housed. We have two main folders. We have quote unquote, we have for the field right here, and then we also have project files. As you might assume, we want to be housing any files like formal submissions or contract documents. Anything that may be needed to be used in the field should be housed under the for the field folder. And then pretty much anything else, should be housed in the project files folder. So like our Revit models, AutoCAD drawing files, presentation images, contracts, cut sheets, and on and on. Autodesk, like its predecessor, BIM 360 Docs, Autodesk Docs supports 60+ file types. So pretty much any file type that you might need in the design and construction process can be housed here in Autodesk Docs. I'm showing a very basic file structure here for demonstration purposes. But just know that you can customize this structure to meet your unique needs or your office standards that you use now. If I navigate to any one of my Revit models here, you can see that I have access to version history. So let me just show you under this file under architecture. So you can see here I have a Revit model here housed here. I still have access, like I do with BIM 360, to version history. So you can see this is version 19. If I click on this, you can see all the different versions of this particular Revit model, where I can copy the Revit model itself. I can download it, so I can basically bring it down to my local workstation, and I can even click on Make Current. Now this is kind of a kill switch, so when I talk about BIM 360 or ACC, I say always be careful with this, because basically what this does, if I say Make Current version 15, I'm effectively doing away with version 16 through 19 here, and if that's what you want to do, great. But if you do that, just know that you will lose whatever work has been made between version 16 to version 19 if I make version 15 current. So this allows you to roll back your models if you need to. You just have to be very careful with this Make Current button here. We can also compare versions. So if I clicked on this tool, similar to what we have in BIM 360, I can actually select, say version 19 versus version 1 if I wanted to, and I could see the differences between those versions in an online viewer. So if I click on the model itself, let me close this. So if I click on the model itself, you can see that it takes me into a viewer that anyone who has used online viewers from Autodesk would recognize. Here I have various navigation options within the 3D model itself down here, so I can pan, I can rotate. I actually have a sectioning tool where I can kind of cut through either vertically or horizontal. I can cut sections through them. Or I can also switch to 2D sheets views if I wanted to review that way as well. So if I click on this little flyout over here you can see right now we're in the 3D view. As long as all of the sheets that are housed in Revit are published with the model, I can view any one of these particular sheets. So let me just click on that. So I'm looking at the overall fourth floor plan here. So any sheets that are housed in Revit, I can also view here in the ACC, again, like I could in BIM 360 Docs. What I can do here then is I can create issues just as we would have in BIM 360. They're located in a little bit of a different spot, so we have a tool over here where I can create issues, and I can, what I can do right here is I can actually select kind of what category the issue may fall under, and as soon as I pick one, I'll call this design. What I can do is I can place my pin here, and then I can add information to this issue itself. I can assign it to somebody specifically, and when you assign it to them, they'll get an email notifying them of the issue. They can then address in the model through Revit, and then come back into the ACC and mark as complete, or make comments on the issue. So it's just a little different location as to where you would find the issue creation, but it still performs the same way as it did in BIM 360. In 2D sheets, I also have the ability to create markups like we had in BIM 360. So let's say, for example, if I were a project manager who might not be using Revit itself, I don't even have a license to it, I can log into the ACC, pull up the sheets in my Revit model just as I'm doing here, and I can start to create markups, which could then function as my red lines if I wish to do so. And then I can let my team know that the sheets have been marked up, and they can then log back in to pick up those red lines. So here you can see, like, for example, I can bubble this area, and then what I can do, I can add some text in here. So I'll just add the test text. It's not very visible, so I can then move this. Oops, I can grab my text and move this out of the way here. And then what I can do here is I can either keep it private to myself, or I can publish it. So if it were red lines that I wanted other people on the team to come in and see, I could click on publish. And then when they came in and looked at this particular sheet, they would see these red lines and they could pick them up. I don't know if we're ever going to get away from kind of being able to create red lines and print them out and then highlight them as you go through them. But this is certainly a step toward doing so, where we can create markups that can be conveyed. And again, that anytime, anywhere kind of mentality, where I'm not dragging a set of drawings with myself, with me either home or, from the office to the site, so on and so forth. So one thing that let me get out of this view here. One thing that I do want to point out that is different is that we now have access to the reports, the members, and the settings more readily in the ACC than we did in BIM 360. So whereas the settings in BIM 360, I'd actually have to go in through the admin portal for both settings or for the members, we now actually have access in the ACC to these three tools in every module. So as we move through the various products, you'll have access to these three tools in each of the products. I know it's kind of a silly little thing, but I think it speaks to the larger picture, in that some of the tools and features in BIM 360 that we may have to toggle through to other modules, they're now more readily available here in the ACC. So it kind of goes back to my point of saying, you may or may not disagree with me, but I think that the organization that we see with the ACC it streamlines kind of the process of using these cloud applications a little more so in the ACC than we did with BIM 360 itself. So now let's take a look at Autodesk BIM Collaborate product. So this product lives under the module heading of model coordination here in the ACC dropdown. So as I mentioned with the slides that we were looking at previously, this is basically comparable to the BIM 360 Coordinate product. So here you'll see a list of all the models that have been saved in the Autodesk Docs platform we were just looking at. So what I can do here is basically select any two of the models that I have here, two or more, I should say. Click on View, and hopefully this doesn't take too long to process. What I can do here is basically take them into a coordination space where I can view the clashes between these two models as we're looking at here. Great, so this didn't take too long to load, which is always good. So here we're back into that same 3D viewer that we were looking at before a little bit. Like BIM 360, I can create and assign issues that if I needed to. So here you can see that same issues tab. So if I clicked on this, I could place a pin, go create issue. I could place a pin here. And I'm going to get that same opportunity to create an issue. Load that, as soon as it loads here, it's going to give me this dialog window where I can, mark the type. I can assign it to somebody specifically. I can give it a due date, a start date. I can add a ton of information like, root cause of it, a description. I can add additional information, for example, that are housed in BIM 3 or Autodesk Docs. So I can attach photos or files, PDFs, RFIs, anything that may be housed in BIM 360. I can attach it to this issue as well, and then I can create it, and it'll get assigned to somebody, and they'll get that email, similar to what we saw before. I can also review, the clashes here. As the main tool, as I mentioned here, was that we can review clashes in the platform. In this product itself. So if I click on this little tool over here for clashes, you're going to see that this is going to look very similar to what you may be familiar with BIM 360 Docs. So again, I say this is kind of basically Navisworks in the cloud to some extent. Most of the designers out there are using Navisworks for the functionality of clash detection. So we can now do that in the cloud. So if I click on any one of these clouds, let me pick a better clash actually. Let me click that off and let me select something down here. There we go. So if I click on the clash, you can see here that most of my model kind of goes into that wireframe view, whereas my clash itself, if I drill down into it, you can see here, basically it looks like the structural model and the architectural model have a kind of, both each have a wall on top of each other. That may happen because I know that these two models kind of have some similar elements, but the idea is that I can run clash detection through here, and then down here I can say either this is not an issue, I'm aware of this, I'm not worried about it, or I can then create an issue. And the same process goes, moves forward with assigning the issue, have somebody look at these two models and, rectify the issue in Revit, and then assign that issue and have them come back in here to ACC and mark those issues as either closed or in progress with comments, so on and so forth. We just close out the coordination space. So one of the new features that can be useful is the addition of the Views tab that we have over here. This allows us to create a coordination space with 2 or more of the models and save it for easy access. So when I click on Save View, I can show you what this actually looks like. So if I click on this, this is going to take us in that same coordination space that we were just looking at, because this is a view that I had already set up for our use for this demo. So what I can instead do, sorry, let me close out of this. So what I can do here is basically set up various views. Now again, in the Models tab, we've only got, what, 1, 2, 3, 7 models here, for example. So it's not too difficult to manage. But think of, if we have a ton of models, and you're working on a project that has, say 50 Revit models, for example, that's probably a little bit outrageous, but, think of something that has 50 models, and it might be a bit overwhelming and hard to keep organized what clashes you have actually been running. So now if I can create save views, like I did here with those 2 models, for example, what I can do is, much more easily keep that organized with which kind of clashes and what models I'm comparing with each other. So again, I've only got this one saved in here, but I can create additional ones for the various models. So let's say I have an MEP versus architectural, MEP versus structural, MEP versus architectural, so on and so forth. That's one way to keep these better organized. And by clicking on this View tab, I have access to all of those those views, those clashes that I've essentially saved. Meetings themselves, so this tab right here, meetings are also now available within Autodesk BIM Collaborate. They used to only be available in the project management module in BIM 360 through the BIM 360 Build product. But now it can actually be used by designers who don't need the other capabilities that are found in Build, for example, but who they do need to create and run meetings in the office, or more to the point, in the field. This certainly makes sense to me. As a recovering architect, since I used to have to schedule meetings, take meeting minutes, distribute those meeting minutes to the construction team in BIM 360 without that Build product, I would not have been able to do that. But now I can perform those activities in the ACC. So like I said, you can see that we have access to those same 3 tools of reports, members, and settings here in this model coordination product as well. But let me just walk you through here. So if I were to go ahead in here and create a meeting, what I can do, so you can see here, just so you can see in the interface, it looks very similar to what we have in BIM 360. I can create a date, I can set a time, I can invite various people. So if I click on add invitees, anybody that's added as a member in my project, I can add them to the meeting, and then I can go through here and type in meeting information, you know, different topics and the like. And part of the beauty is, if I go back to meetings of this tool, is that if I click on, actually, if I just say create meeting, what I can do here is I can actually, oops, sorry. If I go to my previous meeting, what I can do here, so this was the last meeting that was scheduled for this particular project. What I can do here, over in the ellipse over here in the far right, I can click on here and I can say create follow-up. And what this will do is, one, it's going to ask me to select a date. So let me just say this Friday, for example. What it's going to do is it's basically going to populate my meeting minutes, so I don't have to reinvent the wheel every time. It's going to populate with my meeting minutes anything that is still ongoing or open from the previous meeting will automatically populate here in my meeting minutes or my agenda, for example, more to the point. And then I can add in additional items for this upcoming meeting if I needed to. And then at the end, I could turn this into agenda and distribute those meeting minutes if I needed to. Okay, so now let's take a look at our last product today, which is the Autodesk BIM Collaborate Pro product. And as you recall, this solution it bundles both the BIM 360 Coordinate product and the BIM 360 Design products, which are separate in the BIM 360 platform, but now are combined into one product in the ACC. So ABC Pro provides access to both the design collaboration module you may be familiar with BIM 360, as well as this model coordination product that we just looked at. So let me click on design collaboration here. As I mentioned earlier, this module itself, this module provides access to work sharing abilities within Revit and Civil 3D, as well as file sharing controls for linking and general reviews of the files coming from your consultants. So like I said before, I think more often than not, ABC Pro is going to be the preferred choice of these two product options for most of us doing design work, whether it's architects, engineers, so on and so forth. The reason for that is because it gives design teams access to both the work sharing and the file sharing controls, as well as the ability to run clash detection to coordinate those same models and files that other teams are sharing with you. So let's take a little bit of a look at what we have here. So I still have the ability to view different versions through the timeline in my drop down here. So let me just click on and expand this. So you can see here that in this timeline tool, I have access to review, what the MEP, when they've created packages and shared them with the team. Same with architecture and structural. And I can also view changes. So if I click on this, for example, let's see here. Click on that guy. So let's click on this package here. So I can start to review the changes between this package that was shared with the team versus the previous package that may have been created. This way you can see what changes are available and if you want to consume the package or not. Let me go back over here. Oops. Take myself back in this module. So this way you can see what changes are available and if you want to consume that package or not, like I said. Maybe you don't want to consume the package since this time you aren't really dealing with any of the relevant issues that may have changed from one model to the next. You don't necessarily have to consume that package per se if you didn't need that information. What I also can do is if you were to consume the package from, say, your structural consultant, once that package has been consumed, it will drop the model and the other files into the shared folder in Autodesk Docs, very similar to what we would see with BIM 360 Docs. So if I go back over to my Docs module here real quick, I can show you that in my models and drawings files, I actually have a shared file here. So once I consume a model or I consume a package in the design coordination module, again, like we do in BIM 360, as soon as I consume that model or that package, it drops into my shared models folder, and then that's where I can, in Revit, I can take and link any of those models that I consumed. I can link those into my Revit project, and I can see them as a background in my Revit model itself. Now, so you can. now with ACC or ABC Pro, I can actually also run clash detection on these two models in the ACC at no extra cost. So again, because I'm consuming that that model, say from the other team, before I would have to have a separate product if I wanted to run clash detection. I could bring it into my Revit model, for example, link that in and see, kind of try and run some clash detection through directly in Revit. That's a little more difficult than it is in kind of the interface that I showed you a few minutes ago. So now with ABC Pro, I actually have access to that model coordination product, and I can run the clash detection on those models. Let's say, for example, my architectural model versus the structural model that I may have consumed from the package. So beyond the user interface, as well as some of the new access to the meetings that we had in BIM, Autodesk BIM Collaborate, which you can see here again, we have access to here in Design Collaboration. The modules themselves, these products, BIM Collaborate and BIM Collaborate Pro, haven't changed too much from the functionality that we see in BIM 360. However, there is one new tool that you can see over on the left called Changes. This is currently in beta, so if I click on that, it'll bring up this window. So, like I said, this is currently in beta, but it's available to us as users right now. So we may see more and more tools like this rolled out as the developers continue to grow the new ACC platform. This Changes tool allows me to actually monitor the changes between models. This is kind of a similar concept to what I just talked about with seeing the changes. When I go to consume a package that was shared with me. On this one more time. Let's go to structural. So what I can do here, like as I was mentioning, so if I go to when I review a package before I actually consume it, I can say show changes. So these changes that I can view between the particular models, kind of the same idea as what I'm talking about here with changes. And it's also similar for any of you Revit users out there that may have used the copy monitor tool in Revit. Oops. Well, that's interesting. My changes view disappeared. Okay. Well, I'll show you how to create a new watch group then. So basically, where with the copy monitor tool that we have in Revit, where I can see and select any elements that I want to monitor between a linked model, and then be notified when those changes occur after relinking a model with changes. This is the same idea with Changes in the Autodesk Construction Cloud. It actually allows me to select whole models or select only elements that I want to monitor as far as those changes go between the models. So for example, I might want to create, and you can see me do this live in person. So if I select my architectural model and click this check mark and say next, what it will do, hopefully it doesn't take too long here, what I can do is actually create what's called a watch group, where I can filter through and select maybe, for example, only the interior partitions in a Revit model, or only the doors in a Revit model. So it kind of gives us the ability to filter and drill down. So instead of having to review, say, 800 plus changes or the like, from one Revit model to the next, instead I can set up this watch group that allows me to drill down on those changes that I want to see and stay on top of them. I was hoping that this might populate a little faster, but apparently it's not going to. It's pretty useful for anyone who may be tracking and monitoring known changes coming through our models. And of course, this isn't beta, so it seems like I may be having a little bit of trouble with this particular tool here. Let me toggle back. I just want to see. Changes, sorry. The beauty of live demos, everybody. Sorry about that. Yep, my group has disappeared for some reason. Well, in any event, what I could do here is eventually this is going to populate with a full list of all the different categories. And there we go. Full list of all the different categories. I don't know why it took so long the first time, but let's say I want to monitor all the changes that may be happening with the doors in a project. What I can do here is through this full list, I can actually select and kind of pare down. Again, there could be 800 plus changes between models, but instead I actually want to create a watch group that is only monitoring all of the doors in this particular model. So I can click and say next. I can call this door watch group. I'm just going to do this very quickly. And I'm going to say save. And once this processes, it'll create a new watch group that will allow me, now we're not going to see any changes because I have to basically create changes in Revit and publish those changes to the cloud in order for the watch group to function appropriately. But what this will do is I can click on this, come in here and click on this watch group, and it's going to tell me any doors that have been added, any doors that have been moved, or any doors that have been deleted. It's going to basically give me kind of a selection view that kind of drills down just on those doors and allows me to see those changes just for those doors specifically. Okay. This can, and obviously, as you might imagine, this tool can give us more control over viewing and what has changed, as opposed to having to review the whole kit and caboodle through different package reviews and clash detection and so on and so forth. So apologies that I can't quite show you this. I'm running an issue with the live demo, but also the beta version of this doesn't seem to be functioning fully, of course, as we're talking about it here in this webinar. So with that being said, let me say, that is basically an overview of what's new with the Autodesk Construction Cloud, at least with the focus on the design phase. And again, we're just scratching the surface here of these tools, but hopefully this presentation kind of gave you a pretty good overview of this new ACC platform. So what I'm going to do now is turn it back over to Annalisa for any questions that may have been asked in the chat, and we'll see what we can answer for you.
Thank you, Nick. That was a great presentation, quite comprehensive, and I hope everybody got an opportunity to hear all the new features, not just in the name, but also in the functionalities. So I just wanted to let everybody know, if you have any questions, to please fill it in the questions box, and we can address them as we come along. And I guess the first question, Nick, is really from Andre, and they just wanted to find out about the, I hate to start with this, but we should address it, about the cost model, right? They were saying they have the 4 components, so there is, I guess, could you just like pull in the screen with all the ACC products that you have in the PowerPoint? Yes. And they just wanted to clarify that in order for them to get it, it's not like a collection. They have to buy individual subscriptions for each, right?
Yes, that's correct. Let me bring all this up. Oops. So, yes, so I guess ultimately to answer your question, each one of these products, so there's 5 products that you see here. Autodesk Docs comes as part of your AEC collection now, as of the rollout of the ACC platform. So Autodesk Docs comes with any of the AEC collections that you may have. So you may or may not know that, but Autodesk Docs is now part of the AEC collection. It was basically turned on the same time the ACC platform was rolled out. The 4 main products in the ACC are Autodesk BIM Collaborate, Autodesk BIM Collaborate Pro, Autodesk Takeoff, and Autodesk Build. Each one of these is its own separate product. So if you get a license to Autodesk BIM Collaborate, you will get access to Autodesk BIM Collaborate, and of course you have Docs. So let's say you didn't have an AEC collection, I simply purchased a seat of Autodesk BIM Collaborate, I would get access to both that collaboration, that clash detection module that we just looked at, plus access to Autodesk Docs, because you need Autodesk Docs in order to fully, to house the models and the information that would be used with the product itself. Does that address the heart of the question?
Yes, it does. And I think more for the question on how much does it cost, I actually had just posted the link to our store that kind of like tells you what they are individually, right? And then you can find out. I should probably also preface it by saying that we had our own internal struggle here trying to figure out, well, at which point do we change the names on our website for the new products? So, myself and Miriam and Nick have obviously been working on this. So if you go to the link I sent you, it has the names of the old names, primarily because people were still confused what they have as they switch on to the new names, right?
And
so if you have to add
to the level of confusion, if you have an existing BIM, say, seat of BIM 360 design, if you're the contract manager and you go in and look at your Autodesk account page, it's actually going to be called Autodesk BIM Collaborate Pro, because again, you still have maintained that access to the BIM 360 platform, but you also now have essentially been grandfathered into giving you access to the ACC. Whether you choose to use it or not is up to you, but the name change has taken place automatically as well in your Autodesk account.
Understand. And also just maybe like going to say that I know there's a lot of confusion. That's actually the wall of the questions I have, Nick, is like, what do I have? Where do we go from here? First of all, I your pain. I mean, Nick and our team had been dutifully trying to make sure and make sense of all the changes, which is the reason why we have this webinar. I actually urge you to do a few things. One is take a screenshot of this slide that Nick is showing, because it tells you the names. Secondly, maybe look in your portal to try and figure out what you have, and then also reach out to us. Try to figure out, when do you change, what makes sense. And for those, as Nick said, if you're not the contract manager and you're the user, maybe just like working internally to try and figure out when you're going to be rolling out with this. And as I said, if you have any questions, then reach out to our team and Nick, and send an email to support@microsolresources.com. Right, Nick?
Yes, absolutely. And I think so. The sales team may have a better, both the support team and the sales team can help kind of elaborate a little further on what you have and what it could be. So the way, to put it simply, if you have one of these BIM 360 products, at time of renewal, it's basically going to be changed to one of these names that you see here, the comparable product, at time of renewal, and you will have access to both ACC as well as BIM 360 that you may have now. Okay. That's an oversimplification, but just to kind of hopefully kind of give you kind of address some of the questions with a blanket statement. That's more or less the idea behind how it will function.
I understand. Okay. So Chit1 had a question. Do you have to publish models from Models tab to clash detection view, or does it take live models?
Can you ask that question again?
He wants to find out if you have to publish the models from the Models tab to clash detection view.
Oh, okay. Yes, I understand the question. Okay, so yes, the answer to your question is yes. So similar to what you would in BIM 360 Docs. Sorry, that was the first time I actually caught myself. As Annalisa said, we've had some trouble trying to wrap our brains around all the kind of the naming conventions ourselves. I think it was the first time I caught myself during this whole presentation. But in Autodesk Docs, so if I go to models and drawing files, I click on, say, my Revit model. If I'm a project manager, so if I'm part of the production team and I'm working in Revit and I'm syncing with Central, I'm pushing those changes up to my cloud model, several times throughout the day. And then if you have, multiple team members, you have, upwards of, 40, 50 syncs on a given day up to the Revit model itself. So the question is, in the model coordination space, these models that I see here, do I see all of those changes as people are syncing with the central model, or do I have to publish the model from Revit to see those changes? The answer simply is yes, I have to publish from Revit to be able to run clash detection between these models. It's the same kind of principle in that scenario as it is with Autodesk Docs, where if I'm a project manager, I don't have access to Revit, and I click on, say, my Revit model in the 3D viewer, I'm only going to see the changes in that Revit model from the most recent version that has been published to the cloud model. So if I click on this, let me just try and explain this a little better. So if I have from Monday through Friday, my team is syncing with Central, making changes to the Revit model. If I'm a project manager who doesn't have access to Revit, until somebody, say, publishes a new version from Revit to the cloud, like on Friday afternoon, I don't see those changes that are taking place throughout that entire week. They're being housed in the cloud, they're being saved in the cloud. My team that's working in Revit can see them, but me as a project manager cannot see those changes in the Revit model until somebody publishes the model. So again, the idea is that the same principle with Autodesk Docs carries over to this model coordination module, where those changes that are happening throughout the week, I won't see when I go to run clash detection until somebody has published the most recent version from Revit. hopefully, I think that should address the question. I wanted to try and make sure that everybody kind of understood the question as I understood it, so that I could elaborate on that a little.
I understand. We have a few other questions here. I know we're like close to the top of the hour, but maybe we can go and finish them all. One of them is really, this is a question by somebody about Navisworks. So how is this different from Navisworks, especially in the long run?
So I think I mentioned a couple times to think of the model coordination space as kind of a Navisworks in the cloud. I say that because, again, like the main functionality that most Navisworks users, at least as far as designers are concerned, the primary function that people use in Navisworks is that clash detection tool. So what Autodesk provides with this model coordination tool is essentially the clash detection that we can run in Navisworks, where we can compare two or more models together. I can review those clashes. Obviously, with the ACC, now I have issue creation where I can, rather than having to save out those issues or call attention through Navisworks to those issues through the Revit model, I can now use issues to assign clashes for somebody to review. So that's one benefit of using, and one difference of using a model coordination versus Navisworks. So again, it's the main functionality is that clash detection that we have here. Now, if we're talking strictly the other functionality we have in Navisworks, like the timeliner tool, or being able to use it for cost estimating and so on and so forth, breaking our Revit model down into parts, that's more kind of on the pre-construction and construction side of things. We don't have that functionality here in this model coordination product. So if you're looking to do those types of things, maybe Navisworks is the tool for you. If you're just simply looking to run clash detection and being able to call out those clashes, then you can very simply do that in the cloud with these products that the ACC has. One thing I'll note, kind of hinting at next week, I mentioned that Navisworks is appropriate for taking a building and breaking it down by parts for use for cost estimation. Like, there's actually a new product that I mentioned on one of my slides, that Takeoff, for that cost estimating. So this Autodesk Takeoff product, now we can do some of those other functions that you may have done before if you were doing cost estimating or quantity takeoffs in Navisworks. You can now do that through Autodesk Takeoff. So if you want to learn more about that, please join us next week. So a couple of the tools are taking some of those functionality from Navisworks, and they provide those tools here in the ACC. We just don't get all of the tools or all the functionality, especially like the rendering or the timeliner tool, or necessarily the creating of animation sequences and the like. If you're doing that in Navisworks, you don't have that with the ACC, but you have ability to access some of the main tools. And again, like I said, for designers, the main tool in Navisworks is that clash detection, which we now have in BIM 360 or ACC, as we've been talking about today. I would say that's the kind of the most clear definition that or delineation I can give between the software of Navisworks versus the platform of ACC or BIM 360.
Got it. And thanks, Nick. Also wanted to let you know that I sent the link where you can register for next week's webinar that Nick was mentioning about Autodesk Construction Cloud for construction. At the same time, wanted to ask, Chitwan also had a follow-up question on how do you collaborate with the different teams, whether it's civil or structural, on clash resolution. So who owns the license for these platforms?
That would be dependent on who has a license of basically either BIM Collaborate or BIM Collaborate Pro. So if I'm housing my clash, my model coordination in the ACC platform, let's say I'm an architect, I've invited a consultant to my project, assuming they have that, again, that comes with that idea of that bring your own license. So assuming they have a seat of either BIM Collaborate or BIM Collaborate Pro, I invite them to the project and I give them their proper permissions to access the information. So let's say, for example, those of you who've used BIM 360, under the models, for example, if I click on this here, I can click on permissions, I get a flyout. So anybody that's been invited to the project, here we have the whole, our Microsol resources team here that pretty much has full permissions. You just want to make sure that if you have that consultant who wants to run, be able to access the model and have full, basically administrative privileges, you want to make sure that they have the proper permissions. But ultimately, I guess the answer to the question is, if they have a seat of BIM Collaborate or BIM Collaborate Pro, you've invited them to the project through members, they will have access to this model coordination tab. They will see the same models available that you have, that you see. Any models that they've been given permission to access through Docs, they'll see them here. They can run clash detection. They can create the views just as I did here, so I can do for example, they can review my architectural and structural clash detection coordination space that I had set up as well. So ultimately the answer is, at that point, it's a matter of workflow as to who you want to be running the clash detection. If they have full permission and have a license of BIM Collaborate, BIM Collaborate Pro, they can access the models. They can run model clash detection. They can share anything with you as the architect or me as the architect in this example. And so both parties can basically use the clash detection functionality at that point. You just have to have the license.
Got it. Thanks. And I know we're close to the end too, but in the same question, Yanis wants to find out, can you track how much time each of the collaborator is spending on a task?
Not to my knowledge. So you basically, the question is, can you see who's been working in the coordination tab here, running clash detection?
I think he wants to find out not just like who's been working on it, but how long they've been working on it. And I don't know whether they're trying to figure out, well, you spent 50% on this as much as I did, and can we split the cost or something?
Yeah, so I think we've had that question with BIM 360 in the past by being able to track users and what they're actually doing in the modules themselves potentially, either just through general use or in your example through being able to create invoices for billable time. I'm not aware of a way to track actual time spent in the module itself, so you can break it down in that way. We can look and we can check in with Autodesk and see if there is something. I can check internally with my team too to see if anybody knows anything. But I'm not aware of a way to track something, the time in that granular fashion.
Got it. I mean, it sounds like the data sets are already there. They just need to quantify, I guess, that, right? The other question is like, how can we delete the project? That's from Ashkan. Can you show?
How do we delete a project?
Ashkan, can you clarify? Sorry, we did so many other products. I'm not even sure which particular model he was clarifying here. Before you do, can you answer another question while Ashkan is clarifying? Can we set up an auto daily publish? Is that possible?
Yes, you can set up automatic publishing through Revit. I don't have Revit open, so I can't show that, but I can address that question maybe afterwards. But you can set up a publishing schedule through Revit itself as to when it's going to push those changes on a weekly, bi-weekly, monthly basis, whatever you want it to do.
Got it. And then for those who didn't hear, but we did have our Revit, What's New with Revit 2022 webinar last week with Roger, and we actually will be having that recording sometime soon. So we'll let you know. The other question, last question, if we can answer Gerard, is like, can you create sets like in Navisworks? And sorry to keep on coming back to Navisworks.
I don't believe we can create sets. I haven't tried to do that myself. I don't believe that we can create sets just through clash detection like we can in Navisworks now.
Got it. Okay, thank you. And then Roger did mention here that projects are set to be inactive or archived, never deleted unless by Autodesk. Good. That's interesting clarification. Thanks, Roger. And then also Ashkan's like saying he created a test project and he wants to remove it, but he can't. But again, I'll go back to Roger.
Like Roger said, you can archive that project. I think you'd have to reach out. We'd have to reach out to us and we can assist, and we'd have to have Autodesk actually delete the project from the platform itself. I'm sorry, I wasn't quite understanding what that question was, but now it makes sense.
Okay, got it. Thanks. And then Roger also said that issues can be tracked when assigned and when resolved.
Issues can, yes, but so
Not the time they spent on the model or on the.
So if I go back into, yeah. So if I go back into that project that we've been looking at here, I'll show you what Roger's referring to, if I can find the project itself.
We're also about 8 minutes over. Sorry, guys. We just want to address all the questions here.
Yeah, so what Roger is referring to is you can track who, you can basically track who the issue has been assigned to. So we talked about issues through either the viewer, the online viewer, or through the coordinate, the clash detection space. So you can see who it's been assigned to, the due date, when it was started. But I don't think so. You can see the life cycle of these issues. But there's as far as the one question was asking in terms of can I track the exact amount of time that somebody's spending on some of these tasks, there's no way that I know to do something like that.
Got it. And just quick question, since you're sharing this, can you create search and or selection sets?
You can. So you can see here where I can search by issue. So I can search by any information that may be in here, or even text that may be in the issue itself. And I can also let me close out this filters to show you even more of this. So I can actually create filters. And I can say, I just want to see anything that's been, any issue that's been created within the design category. And I can very simply navigate through by filtering through the different types. I just selected this. I can do a number of different things. So I can filter through by type. I can filter through by status, whether it's open, pending, in review, closed, so on and so forth. The date ranges, either whether it's start date, due date, assigned to. So I have a lot of filtering tools where I can. This isn't too, we've got 22 issues in here right now, but think of a full life cycle project that could have upwards hundreds of issues in here. So this filter tool would be very useful to be able to kind of walk through the where any issues may stand or the full life cycle of the issues and review any of the information that we saw. Basically, is something that we could create in the issue itself. We can use the filter tool to filter through and see, filter through that information based according to any of these particular fields.